Hello, my friends. Welcome back to this week's episode of Better Relationships After Baby. I hope that you are well this week and that you are feeling in tune with yourself and celebrating any of your victories, even if they're small. We are trudging along here, friends, and I am so proud of you. I believe that this week's episode was made specifically for a few of you listeners. So let me know afterwards if it was you that needed to hear this message. I am joined today by a friend that I met online by having similar values, similar messaging, but kind of some different ways of approaching those. So I have Sandi Konta here. And Sandi, I'm going to ask you to share a little bit about yourself, your work, and why it matters to you.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me. My name's Sandi. I'm a mom of two. I have been partnered for 16 years and I live up in snowy Maine. We're approaching like 3 feet, which is blowing my mind.
Wow.
Yeah. And professionally, I have sort of a long story, but most recently I've gotten to live out my dream, really, which is working with women one-on-one. And that started by becoming a certified fair play facilitator. And I've taught dozens of workshops about fair play and supported women and couples, like privately.
Yep.
And then I recently completed Martha Beck's Wayfinder coach training. And now I get to be a coach.
Yes.
And I've been able to help moms of any stage and any age who have lost their sense of self and are tired of putting themselves last. Like they know something needs to change, but aren't sure where to start.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of talking about societal expectations and societal pressures. So I help them a lot with letting go of the shoulds, reconnecting with their inner voice, working through any obstacles that come up, and then moving forward.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. I am on this very firm belief right now that the world needs strong women and specifically moms to know themselves and to use their voice, and that is the hope for our future. And so this work is so important. And I can't stop talking about it. So I'm glad that we get to have this conversation today.
Can I read a quote? I just saw that totally aligns with that.
Yes, please.
Transform yourself to transform the world.
Awesome.
Grace Lee Boggs. Yes, I totally agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. Okay. Well, let's talk about how we get to do that. Sandi, you mentioned fair play, which I think a lot of my listeners are familiar with. Some have used fair play, the book, the cards, all of that. I have really skirted around the edges of fair play, and I have some pieces of information. But can you just give us a quick rundown of what that is and why that applies to both women and couples?
It's a system to help couples share chores equitably. And more than anything, it helps facilitate conversations. It's like a tool for facilitating important conversations. And for me, I'll share the way I see it and how it's been really helpful for me, but it's like being able to look at your daily life and maybe places where there's a little bit of tension or rub, or it's inefficient, you're doubling up on work, and really decide what matters to you, how you want your partnership to be, your family life to be, and deciding if you're doing what you're doing as a reflection of societal expectations, what you saw your parents do growing up, or what you actually believe in and want to create.
Okay, so Sandi, you've told us a little bit about what fair play is, and I can totally see the benefits. I think we probably both hear couples that are frustrated, things are not equitable in the home, there's a lot of resentment that builds. So tell me a little bit about how and when a couple would use this as a tool in their home.
Yeah, it helped me and my partner move towards equity. So I think it has a lot of really great ideas to offer, and you can take what works for you and leave the rest.
Yeah.
But I mean, certainly, I've worked with couples who are expecting babies, and it would be brilliant to
Mhm.
check out Fair Play before you welcome a child. There's even a guide on the website for Fair Play that helps you walk through all the potential tasks that come with welcoming a baby, like,
Uh-huh.
bottle cleaning, all those things. Um, if you feel resentment, all those things, there's some advice or some wisdom out about how to invite your partner if you're feeling those things and maybe not to bring those emotions.
Yeah.
But that's a clue that change needs to happen. If you're feeling like you're doing a lot of double work and you don't know who's responsible for what,
Mhm.
if you're kind of playing chicken with the dishes, um,
What does that mean? Playing chicken with the dishes.
like who knows, you know, I did it yesterday. It's his turn. I'm not touching those dishes,
Yeah.
and then whatever, he has his own ideas. Yeah, if you just, overall, I think fair play helps promote efficiency and ease.
Mm.
Um, and it's a useful tool for anyone who feels like there's an imbalance or just kind of wants to get more clear on who's responsible for what,
Yeah.
and like create explicit expectations together about the tasks that you do in your household.
Okay. So we kind of opened up with this tool that is available and this support that is available, but let's dig in a little bit to why this matters and why someone might be really looking for a way to bring more connection, more ease and teamwork into the family. I know you talked about this really working for you. I mean, what was going on, as much as you're willing to share, in
Sure.
your relationship before you found a way to address it a little better?
I have a very classic story of falling into traditional gender roles.
Mm-hmm.
We welcomed babies 15 months apart. I stayed home. Um, we we both had ideas about what it meant to be a mom and a dad, and we've had to work through those. But it got to a place that I was so burned out and angry that um, like change had to happen.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't any other option.
Yeah.
And I actually like tried to create a tool um,
Okay.
to help us. But fair play was what made the difference in teaching my partner what the mental load is
Mm.
and figuring out how to distribute it fairly.
Mm-hmm.
Does that
Mm-hmm.
make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
Yes. And, you and I were talking before about the person who usually carries most of the load can become complicit in their own oppression. They can be adding to their own resentment and frustration. Uh,
Yes.
First of all, I kind of want to break down, what does that phrase mean, to be complicit in your own oppression? And then we can work on maybe some tools and ideas for people who resonate with that.
Um, yeah, it sounds kind of it's a strange term maybe, but like I to me it's when you willingly put yourself last.
Mm,
And
yeah,
you're making choices that where you don't value your time,
yeah.
um, where you take on stress so others can avoid it,
Mm,
things like that.
mm. Taking on stress so others can avoid it. I I love the way you said that, because I also think that something that happens is when we have unclear communication and unclear expectations, we even assume that stress that someone will be feeling without them even putting it on us. We just create this idea in our brains, and sometimes we create a lot more problems that we then use our energy to solve than were even existent in the first place.
100%. Yeah.
What was this? I mean, you talked a little bit about falling into traditional gender roles. What was being complicit in your own oppression for you?
Yeah.
Um, and then how do you see this day to day in our society, in people that you talk to, just scrolling Instagram? I mean, where else do we see this coming out?
I wrote a list.
Yay!
Let's see. I valued my husband's time more because he's working outside the house and he earns
Ooh.
more. Um, and right now I tell my clients all the time that everyone's working and everyone's time is equally valuable.
Mm-hmm.
But I absolutely had to work through that. I made decisions that didn't value my time or needs. I was constantly doing things for my family during my professional or personal time. Like every lunch break at work was family focused, and like my husband was out eating lunch, that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
like that's one of those examples. Like he didn't
Yeah.
expect me to do that.
Right. So he never asked you and said that in order to be the partner he needed you to be, you needed to give up your lunch break to do everything for everyone else.
Yeah. No. I
Where
I
did that
did
come from?
I think a compulsion, like I have on here that I took pride in sacrificing and being a super mom. Like I think I took there's some meaning in much to my life. Like I saw like I bonded with my friends over how much we were sacrificing.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it was I earned approval.
Yeah. Ooh.
But I also burned out.
Wow. That like sunk so deep in me, earning approval by proving how burnt out you were.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't use those words at the time, but like it
Oh yeah.
was like, yeah,
So
I'd work.
you were a really good mom, a good wife, a good community member, it sounds like.
I was like, yeah, I like to say I was a plus good girl who turned into like a spectacular super mom.
Oof, okay. What was that journey like
And
for you?
that to me, super mom is like, martyr, burned out, no
Yes.
sense of self, talking about myself. But what was that journey like? I mean, seamless, on some level, because I feel like I almost fell, both my partner and yeah, both my partner and I kind of fell into our roles like zombies.
Yeah.
This is what it means to be a good woman. People are telling me, that's what it means to be a mom. And I didn't see it until I did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Where else are you seeing it right now in the world?
Um, I mean, I just wrote a list of double standards, like asking moms, like, "Oh, you're at the gym. Who's watching your kid? Oh, the dad's babysitting, or don't you feel like you're missing out on bonding time because your kids are in daycare? Those kind of things. But where am I seeing it? Everywhere. Um, just the idea that we can do it all. We can look good doing it. We don't need to ask for help. We're super moms. We're like, the what do you call it? The bunny, the battery bunny.
The energizer, right? You just have to keep going.
Yeah, I think it's reinforced over and over by our culture. Like taking time to care for yourself and cultivate your own aliveness is countercultural as a woman.
Totally.
But it's changing. I truly believe it's changing.
Yes. And there's probably some growing pains
Yes.
in both changing your own home and your own relationship dynamic. And I know, we are seeing the growing pains as a society too. It's
Yes.
not it's not fully welcomed
No.
for women like us to stop being good girls and in the form that we've talked about it.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that maybe stops people sometimes. I think there's probably a lot of people on the brink of wanting to become better advocates, wanting to understand their place, their passion, their purpose, and feeling like that could be an uphill battle to work towards.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think you have to be willing to sit with a lot of discomfort
Yeah,
because people are going to react when you start changing how you move through the world. Like,
right.
I'm not going to do that. You can do it. I have faith in you. Like to your partner, letting him struggle with tasks that you have struggled with and learned already, those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. I love telling couples that we're both in heteronormative relationships
Mhm.
here on this podcast, but I do think we could also say that fair play works for any setup of relationship. Is that
Yes,
accurate?
absolutely.
Okay. Um, but it's so interesting to me in conversations with couples to think about how the primary, the default parent, the one who's kind of, taken most of that responsibility from the get go, it's not that they don't struggle. It's just that oftentimes they have the room to struggle without oversight. And tell me, I would love to hear your reflection on this, but the partner that starts to take things on through these conversations and after understanding about the mental load and as an act of growth as a couple can sometimes have that oversight of their partner and that judgment of their partner. And there's a huge piece of this where I believe women primarily have to let go of the reins a little bit and let go of
Totally.
controlling everything and everyone.
I agree. I think if you want your partner to step up, you need to step back. And
Ooh, that's good.
thank you. I just wrote about this yesterday, but a big turning point for me was realizing that my husband was also um, totally put in a box by the patriarchy,
Yeah.
was also living, being a martyr for his workplace instead of our home, was also being kept from his aliveness, his humanity.
Yeah.
Um, we were disconnected and we were both kind of trying to please, 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 please.
Mhm.
And so being able to take my blame from towards him and my control,
Mhm.
and just see him with some compassion as someone who also has, you know,
Yes.
lived under a patriarchal system that wants him
Yeah.
to behave a certain way.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I think as humans are looking for the enemy or where
Yeah.
to put the blame. And in our intimate relationships with our chosen partner, that can often be the easiest place to put it. But what I
Yeah.
just heard you say, and I want to invite our listeners to think about even more, is that we kind of have a common enemy. We have a common
We
blame, and we
do.
get to work against that towards something better.
100. Yes. Couldn't have said it better.
Oh, well, yeah, you bring out some really, really passionate ideas in me. I love what you have to say here. Um, what about being the good girl, and letting go of that? I know that you are passionate about helping women specifically move past that, move through that, and find, more freedom, more empowerment, those pieces of themselves. Where does someone start? Because we can feel really trapped.
Ooh, that's a good question. Slowly, gently,
Right.
compassionately, um, yeah, with a lot of grace for yourself.
Yeah.
But for me, and what I believe is that once you can see, like sometimes we think we are our thoughts,
Mm,
like, or like when I was taking my identity was supermom, but, really I was pleasing something outside of me. I wasn't being me. So to me, like I wrote like what things I see as a good girl, people pleaser, puts her needs last, feels responsible for everyone else's comfort,
mm,
selfless, doesn't make waves or challenge other people, and I think like one thing I would ask people to think about if they're like wondering
yeah.
about, hey, my partner said he has too much stress to do this, even though, like, say you're both working full-time jobs, you both have the same load, you might even have more, like, by doing the thing for him, who does it benefit?
Mhm,
Like, ask yourself the question, who does it benefit? These behaviors that are kind of maybe, I don't know, zapping your insides a little bit,
mhm,
like
mhm.
you spiking your intuition, like this doesn't feel good anymore. Like
Yeah.
this isn't for me.
Yeah. I heard you say like this doesn't feel good anymore. And I think it's important to stop and recognize that there can be some seasons and times when filling very traditional roles and check boxes might be the way that you start feeling good about yourself. There's a lot of
Yeah.
people who get a lot of enjoyment and a lot of fulfillment out of that, but I think what we've both experienced and hear from so many is that there comes a point where you're like, oh, okay, like this season is done. There's more for me to explore and dig into. And I just say that because I don't want anyone to feel shame necessarily
No.
for being a good girl. I know that's not what you're saying at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm constantly like, I don't want someone to feel shame for that. But also, I think at the core, when we get the chance to dig a little deeper, most people want to move past that restriction.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like one step at a time, like even
Yeah.
noticing, hey, I just did that and I didn't need to do that.
Yes.
Like I did that to I'm just keep using partners, but like
Yeah.
because I think I'm protecting my partner from stress.
Yeah.
So like celebrate noticing that, and
Yes.
then the next time maybe you won't do it and it'll feel uncomfortable.
Mhm.
But that's because your
Mhm.
nervous system isn't used to it.
Yeah.
And then just bit by bit, it'll start feeling better.
Yeah. I think a lot of times we feel paralyzed
Yeah.
by making a change, especially when we realize that we want something to be different and it can feel like it's going to rock so many boats. There's so many pieces. Um, and I think sometimes people go years knowing they want something to be different and not going after it because they don't know where to start. So I wonder, with fair play in mind, with breaking the good girl mentality, where can someone take an action step towards more of that equity, more of, speaking about women, more of her personal ability to advocate for herself and feel, really connected to herself?
I would say take it slow and be as gentle as possible with yourself. And I talk about something called turtle steps, and it's like a next step that is like so small that someone might even say like it's like ridiculous or like it's just so small. It's like crazy doable.
Yeah.
And like if you have not spent any time on yourself and you have been itching to go for a walk, like a 10-minute walk is better than an hour walk. And when you take that 10-minute walk, it's going to feel great.
Mm-hmm.
And whether or not you do it once a week or 5 times a week, you're going to start, um, to build confidence and feel differently about yourself and see what's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about for the couple that wants to maybe engage fair play or something similar? Um, do they jump in? I know there's like 100 cards, right, in fair play. Do they just like start with all 100 cards? Where, because to me, I'd be like, okay, I'm putting that back in the box. I can't handle something that big.
Yes. No, I agree. It can look very intimidating to start.
Hmm.
I would say the exact same thing. Like, start slow, one conversation at a time. A lot of couples tackle one card at a time. So
Okay.
it's really like let life lead you.
Hmm.
Like if you are truly playing chicken at the sink with dishes, like have a talk about that. What does it mean for dishes to be done? And who's in charge of it this week?
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
give yourselves grace, approach each other with curiosity and humor, try to leave blame out of it.
Yeah.
Um, and scorekeeping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. So you could just start with the first task that's causing the most stress.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Or like just you would benefit from some clarity around it
Okay. Can we role play that really quickly about the dishes?
about the dishes. Yes.
Okay. So let's say you are the partner who feels the load is on you. I am the partner that you are addressing. How I'm guessing you're not just going to be like, listen,
Yeah.
dummy, you're not getting this done and I hate you for it.
No.
I mean, that might go through your head first. Let's refine it a little bit.
I think that number one, I wouldn't necessarily start with a task. I would start with an
Mm,
invitation to have some conversations about
okay.
how to be more connected around the household, how to be more part, like to be more of a partnership.
Yeah.
Um, how my partner, I would like him to be more empowered, feel like he has more ownership.
Mm,
I hate nagging. I would like to be
mhm,
done with that. Like,
mhm.
none of this helps us. Let's just make a commitment to talk once a week,
Ooh.
that kind of
Mhm.
thing. And then with the dishes, like, it feels like we never know who's doing the dishes. And like, you can feel my side eye sometimes. And like, let's just talk about the dishes.
Okay.
And it would be, do you want me to go into like an example of how we would talk about the dishes?
Sure.
Okay. Just talk about what it means for the dishes to be functional in your household. What does done look like? When does the sink need to be emptied? When does the dishwasher need to be emptied? Does doing the dishes include wiping out the sink and clearing the drain? Does it include wiping the counter? Some people were talking about sweeping, like cleaning the stove. That was all like their dishes card. And
Okay.
then it's like, what supplies do you need to make this come to life? Like sponges, soap, all the things that you use. And how are you going to tell the person who goes shopping when those things are out?
Okay.
So you
So
kind
that's
of,
like so much more than who's going to do the dishes.
yeah,
It's getting a clear picture of the expectation.
yes.
I don't
And
know about
shared.
you, but I feel much more confident when I know what the expectation of something is and I don't feel like it's ambiguous.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I know my partner, prior to all of this work we've done, had no idea what the expectations were.
Right. Well,
So, like,
right.
yeah,
You grow up in two different households, ideas, pictures in your head of what everything means. And if we're not talking about it,
yeah.
it doesn't match up.
No, no, you're making a lot of assumptions and expecting
Yes.
people to read your mind.
Oh my gosh. And you know what? I feel like a lot of us have tried living on assumptions and expecting mind reading, and it just doesn't work.
No, fun.
That's probably the first thing that anyone can drop.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Agreed.
okay. I love that we have a starting place for people. I love that we have an idea here. Is there anything about fair play, being a good girl, being complicit in your own oppression that we haven't hit on or that you really like feel on your heart that you want people to receive?
Hmm. One thing, just going more off the dishes. One thing that I really love about fair play is like my husband's in charge of the dishes, and once we have this explicit expectation we've defined together, he can make that. He has ownership of the task.
Mm-hmm.
So he makes it happen in any way that works for him. And I am no longer thinking about the dishes. I'm
Yeah.
not caring about the dishes. They are gone from my head. So, like we talked about that, if you want your partner to step up, you got to step back. Like that goes for this because they're going to do things differently.
Yeah.
But if it gets done in a way that you both decided, then life is good, right? Like for me, it was like getting less having less of a heavy mental load was much more valuable than having things done in the specific way that I thought
Yeah.
they should be done.
That's brilliant. Yes.
Um, so yeah, I wanted to add that. And then just with being complicit in your own oppression, like number one, it's not your fault. We're all trained to do exactly what we're
Mhm.
doing, starting in like really as soon as you can learn, like, understand language,
Yeah.
maybe even before.
Yeah.
Because you learn that when you smile, people get excited. Like there's like
Mhm.
it started a long time
Mhm.
before now. So be gentle with yourself. But when you pay careful attention to how you're behaving and who it benefits, um, you can see where you're you may be able to see better where you're being complicit in your oppression or how your conditioning is affecting your choices. And when you can see it, you can change it. So like one step at a time,
Yeah.
if you just keep going one little step at a time, like you'll be amazed.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, your wisdom, and just your heart for making the world a better place,
Oh,
starting, inside our homes.
oh, my pleasure.
All
It's
right.
been really fun to talk. And
Well,
I did want to let everybody know I have a free introduction to fair play on my website.
ooh, okay. Amazing. And I will put that website and your Instagram in the show notes, and people can check that out. They can just go and get that. Is it a blog post? Is it a download? What are they finding out about Fair Play there?
It's a recorded workshop.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah, it's an hour. And on that page, even if you just want to like get a little taste, there's a manual, there's printable cards. So you don't
Wow.
even have to watch it if you don't want to.
Okay.
Like poke
Okay.
around.
Yes, amazing. Okay. And what is that website? Again, I'll put it in the show notes.
Donebeinggood.com.
Perfect. I love it. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to share with us and keep up the good work.
Chelsea.